The Jeffrey Epstein story refuses to stay buried. Every time it seems like the world has moved on, something new surfaces, a document, a name, a deleted file, and suddenly the whole thing explodes again. And the question everyone keeps coming back to is the same one Joe Rogan said out loud. Who was really in that circle? Who got compromised? And why does it feel like we're still only seeing a fraction of what actually happened? Rogan broke it down in a way that made a lot of people uncomfortable because it wasn't conspiracy talk. It was basic logic. He pointed out that if you're a powerful person, a politician, a billionaire, a celebrity, you can't just call someone up and trust them. You can't take risks. So when someone like Epstein came along offering a completely sealed-off world where nothing could leak, where everything looked legitimate, that was the trap. It wasn't just about what happened on the island. It was about the leverage. And once you have footage, once you have evidence, once you have proof of something that person can never explain away in public, you own them. Rogan put it plainly, from an intelligence standpoint, it's a brilliant operation. Think about how many global decisions could be quietly shaped by people who were being held over a barrel and never even knew it was coming. And then there's Ghislaine Maxwell. She's sitting in prison right now, convicted for trafficking minors to powerful men. But here's what Rogan kept circling back to. She was convicted of supplying victims to someone. That means there's a list. There are names on the other side of that crime. People who received what she provided. And yet somehow, those names have never been fully made public. No charges. No accountability. Just silence. As Rogan put it, you can't be convicted of trafficking without someone receiving those victims. So where's the prosecution of those people? Why is that not the center of this entire story? That's not a fringe question. It's the most logical question anyone can ask. And the fact that there's still no clear answer is exactly why this story won't die. Then comes the part where Rogan starts working through the names that keep appearing in witness accounts and recorded testimony. Virginia Giuffre, Maria Farmer. Women who sat on camera, on record, and named names, and still found that half the audience only heard the parts they wanted to hear. Farmer described Bill Clinton on the jet, and conservative circles ran with it. But she was also describing Donald Trump visiting Epstein's penthouse multiple times a week, and that part got buried. Giuffre made the same observation. People weren't listening to the whole tape. They were picking the part that confirmed what they already believed and discarding the rest. And Rogan's take on the broader picture is hard to dismiss. He doesn't believe that every high-profile person in Epstein's orbit necessarily knew what they were getting into. His argument is that Epstein was sophisticated enough to engineer situations. A girl who appears to be of legal age, an environment that looks normal enough, and suddenly a man who had no idea what was actually happening has footage that can destroy him. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a documented technique used in intelligence operations for decades. You don't need someone to commit a crime knowingly to have leverage over them. You just need something they can't afford to explain. Then the FBI memos dropped. And that's where things shifted from uncomfortable to genuinely alarming for a lot of people. Newly released documents from the Justice Department contained FBI interview summaries with a woman who made serious allegations, not just against Epstein, but against Donald Trump. The allegations were unverified, and the White House called them completely baseless. But what raised eyebrows wasn't just the content of the memos. It was the pattern around them. Of the 4 FBI interviews with this woman, only one was included in the initial document release, the one where she made allegations against Epstein but not against Trump. The other 3, including the ones containing allegations about Trump, came out only after pressure. The woman herself reportedly questioned why she was even coming forward given that the statute of limitations had already passed. And then, almost immediately after those documents went live, 16 files were pulled from the DOJ's own website, deleted, taken down after being posted. And legal analysts were quick to point out that this wasn't just unusual. It appeared to be in direct violation of the very law that mandated the release. A law, by the way, that Donald Trump himself had signed. That law required all records to be released within 30 days. It required the release of investigative materials, communications between FBI agents, memos between prosecutors. None of that appeared. It prohibited redactions except in very narrow circumstances, specifically to protect victims. And yet pages and pages came back blacked out, covering far more than victim identities. Meanwhile, Trump's name was conspicuously absent from what was released. When the DOJ was asked about the redactions, they told Fox News that materials were withheld specifically because individuals were politically engaged or were government officials, which is almost the exact opposite of what the law permits. So you've got a law passed to force transparency, a release that didn't fully comply with that law, documents that were posted and then deleted, and an explanation from the DOJ that seems to directly contradict the legislation they were supposed to follow. However you feel about the political figures involved, that sequence of events should raise serious questions for anyone paying attention. Bill Clinton was pulled back into the story at the same time. A congressional subpoena from the House Oversight Committee demanded he testify about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, meetings, travel, what he knew, and when. His team pushed back and sought a closed-door deposition rather than public testimony. By the deadline, neither Bill nor Hillary Clinton had appeared on Capitol Hill. The committee chairman threatened contempt proceedings, pointing to the fact that Trump allies Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon had actually served prison time for ignoring similar congressional demands. Whether it escalates that far remains to be seen, but the pressure is real and documented. The Clinton-Epstein timeline is one that keeps resurfacing precisely because it's not just rumor. It's on record. A $2,000 donation to Clinton's 1992 presidential campaign. An appearance at a White House donor event in 1993 where both Epstein and Maxwell were photographed present. Multiple trips abroad after Clinton left office, some involving Epstein's private plane, touching down in Asia, Africa, and Europe. Photos, flight logs, and public appearances that put them in the same spaces across more than a decade. Clinton has consistently said he had no knowledge of Epstein's crimes until after his death, and no victim has directly accused him of wrongdoing. Hillary Clinton, in her own congressional testimony, said she had no recollection of ever meeting Epstein. But the timeline of their association, documented and photographed, is why the questions haven't gone away. Then came the Bill Gates angle. Unsent draft emails found in Epstein's account. Emails saved but apparently never sent, with no evidence they were ever shared, made graphic and unverified allegations about Gates. A representative for Gates called the claims absolutely absurd and absolutely false. Gates himself addressed it directly, saying the email was false, that he was only ever at dinners with Epstein, never visited the island, and that every moment he spent with Epstein was a mistake he deeply regrets. What did stand out, however, was a separate set of emails showing that Gates had taken Epstein's advice on philanthropic strategy seriously, discussing how to approach ultra-wealthy donors and how to frame his giving. Epstein's calendars and emails also showed a long series of meetings, lunches, dinners, and calls with Gates stretching from 2010 through at least 2014. Not one encounter, a sustained relationship. And that's the detail that keeps the story alive regardless of what any single email says. Melinda Gates, for her part, didn't stay quiet. She spoke on the record about how painful the Epstein story is for her personally, not just because of what happened to the victims, but because it brings back memories from her marriage. She said, plainly and without drama, that she had to leave, that she wanted to leave, that she needed to leave both the marriage and eventually the foundation. And watching those women speak at microphones in Washington, she said her reaction was simply sadness. Sadness for what they went through, and hope that they finally see some justice. And then there's Elon Musk. Musk had publicly stated on multiple occasions that he had nothing to do with Epstein after the 2008 conviction, that Epstein had tried repeatedly to get him to visit the island, and that he had declined every time. But the released files told a different story. An email from November 2012 shows Epstein asking how many people Musk would be bringing on a helicopter to the island. Musk's response asked what night would be the wildest party. A year later, Musk reached out again saying he'd be in the British Virgin Islands area over the holidays and asked if there was a good time to visit. Epstein replied that there was always space for him. Whether those visits actually took place isn't confirmed. But Musk had said he refused to go, and these emails are dated years after Epstein's conviction. On the record, in the files, and Musk's representatives didn't respond to requests for comment on them. The same pattern applied to Howard Lutnick and others who had made similar statements publicly, only to have the files reveal ongoing contact that contradicted what they'd said. Whoopi Goldberg did come forward to address why her name appeared in the documents. She explained that a request was made to use a plane connected to Epstein to get to a charity event for Julian Lennon's foundation. She made clear she never got on the plane, that she knew what kind of exchange would have been expected, and that she walked away from it. Her point was a fair one. A name appearing in a document doesn't automatically mean involvement. Context matters. But as she also acknowledged, nuance tends to get lost when something this explosive is circulating online. And that's the reality of where this story stands right now. Millions of documents still haven't been released. Files were posted and then deleted. Heavy redactions cover things that don't fit the narrow legal justification for redaction. A congressional subpoena has been defied. Witness accounts have been selectively amplified and selectively ignored depending on who's telling them. And the one person who could have named every name died in a prison cell with cameras that weren't working and injuries that medical experts said weren't consistent with a standard hanging. The full picture may never come out cleanly, but the documents keep surfacing, the names keep appearing, and the questions keep getting harder to dismiss. So do you think the truth about Epstein's network will ever actually be fully exposed? Or is this one of those stories that gets buried a little deeper every time someone gets too close? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay ahead of stories like this one, the ones that keep getting pushed out of the headlines before they're finished, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because this story isn't over.